So this is Billy Cox. He's our lead butcher here at Ranch Foods Direct, and he's going to teach us about the cross rib roast.
Well, this is the cross rib roast, other known as the English or shoulder clod. It's very versatile. It's comes off the chuck of the animal. It's basically the cow's shoulder. So as you can see, it's got really good marbling, and it's not as fatty as the chuck roast, but it does the job very well. And for a crock pot, these things come out perfect. So if you want to know where it comes from on the animal, it's just right in here on the actual cow. So really good choice if you're going to do crock pot or something for the winter time.
And now, cooking with Mike Callicrate.
So what I want to do is remove this from the bag, but I don't want to lose any of the juices. So I'm gonna take the roast out of the bag so I can get it prepared, but I want to save as much juice as I can. Of course, this roast has a really nice little layer of fat, which we want to make sure remains on the piece of meat, because this is where a lot of your flavor is going to come from, plus your juices that you're going to depend on to cook this in your crock pot. The first thing I do is I poke some holes like we're seeing here with a knife, and what I'm wanting to do is insert some garlic cloves, which I've already peeled and prepared. In fact, this one's pretty big, so I might just go ahead and split some of these to where I can get more of them inserted into the meat. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm going to insert that clove down into that piece of meat so it cooks and really adds that flavor to the roast. I like to use real salt. It's a coarse ground natural salt that's not highly refined, so it's got a lot of the minerals in it. It just brings out a lot more flavor, and it's a really healthy kind of a salt that we use. And I want to salt that all the way around. And look at this beautiful fat cap here that we definitely want to leave. And do not trim the fat on these roasts. This happens to be a cross rib roast, and I like to use a coarse pepper. This happens to be a cross rib roast, which is going to be just a little less fat than a chuck roast. My favorite of all is the chuck roast. It's got a little more fat in it. And on a cold fall or winter day, this just tastes so good. So what we're doing now is we've got our crock pot here. We're going to set it on the counter, plug it in, and then we go ahead and we put our roast in the crock pot. Very simple process. And here's the big deal. Here's something that I really like to do. And in our kitchen here at the Peak Plains Food Hub, we make our own broths. We also do our own beef tallow. We also do our rendered pork fat. But one of the things that I really enjoy adding to my roasts are these broth bombs. The cool thing about these is that you can put one of these in a cup of hot water and have some broth. It kind of, instead of coffee perhaps, mid-morning, it's a good little snack. But if you'll just hold that in your hand for a little bit, it'll thaw that out to where it just pops right out of the container. So what this is a demi-glaze concentrated broth. And I just pop that in, and I want to put 2 of them on this roast. And you can see that when this broth bomb melts, it's going to go right down into the same holes that garlic is inserted into. And then it's just a matter of putting the lid on. Don't add the vegetables yet. Just put the lid on and let it cook for however many hours. Probably I'd put this on low, and I'd probably want to cook it. I'm going to put this in at about 7 in the morning, and about noon, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna take my lid off, and that is when I want to add my vegetables. So I've already pre-cut a bunch of the vegetables. I've got some onions that are ready to go in there. I've got some potatoes. I love these potatoes from the San Luis Valley, from Rocky, the potato farm over there. These are just so delicious, and I love these smaller potatoes. And our carrots are all ready to go in. And then I also like to add a few other little herbs and spices like the thyme and the rosemary. So, and I might add a little bit more salt. And at the same time, I'm adding these. Before I add these, I'm gonna wanna flip this over. Now, by then, the broth is already melted down into the piece of meat, and I'm gonna flip that over, and then I'm gonna put all my vegetables in and around it and on top. And then I'm just gonna replace the lid. And about 5 o'clock, when you're ready for supper, open it up and serve it. Earlier, we placed the roast in the crock pot with garlic inserted into the meat. And now that we've cooked it about halfway through, we're ready to take the lid off, and we're gonna add our vegetables. We don't want to overcook the vegetables, so we want to add them later in the cooking process. The other thing I like to do is I like to turn this roast over. And this has a really nice fat cap on it. So this fat cap is just going to continue to melt down into the meat. So this is when I want to start. I've got all these pre-cut. So we're gonna put these vegetables in. And this roast will be ready in about 4 hours from when we put the vegetables in. So this is probably going to be around 6 meals, I'd guess, something like that. And then I want to add just a little bit more salt. And that's it. We're ready to put the lid back on. And dinner will be served in about 4 hours. So total time in this crock pot is probably going to be around 10 hours total. Okay, it's been about 9 hours probably that this roast has been cooking at low temperature in this crock pot. Now, the way we can tell that we're ready is we put the vegetables in, 4 hours ago, roughly. And just look how tender they are. I mean, they're perfect. The carrots are nice and tender. The rosemary and everything, it just smells good. There's a little bay leaf in there. You can just see how this is tender. So basically what we want to do is we're going to try to get this roast out of here without it totally falling apart. And we're going to put it right here. Okay, we can either set this on a cutting board or just put it in a pan to catch all the drippings. The drippings are precious. We want to make sure we don't lose the drippings. So I'm just going to start here and just slice some of this off. You can see it. It's falling apart. It's perfect. You're going to need to cut. So there you go. You can see how nice and tender that is. Then, once it's on the plate and you put some vegetables on the plate, you can smash those potatoes a little bit, and then just take a little bit of this beautiful gravy, this broth that came off the roast. And understand, we never added water to this. We put that roast in there just by itself with no additional water. The only thing we did is we put 2 of those broth bombs. We call them the broth bombs, the demi-glazes that went on top of the roast. And then just go ahead and just pour some of that over that meat. And that will make it absolutely fantastic. Thanks for watching.
And this has been Cooking with Mike Callicrate.